Okay, let's go over the ins and outs of the series against Detroit. And if game one is any indication, this is going to be a good series.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans. Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the podcast where we talk about your Oakland A's and their final year in Oakland. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been a baseball podcaster for a while now. This is my sixth season here at the Locked On Podcast Network and my first one covering the A's. Follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And the show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, we're going to do one of those episodes where we cover the entire weekend of games. But whoa, Friday's game is that's enough. That was a 4-course meal. Going into the game, I thought this was, if there was ever going to be a game where the A's weren't going to win, it was going up against Skubal, because Skubal is one of the best pitchers in baseball. He is having a Cy Young caliber season, and I thought, okay, you sometimes got to have games where you go, this may not be our day. This may not be our day to win. And when they were starting to play them pretty well, the moment when there was the drive to right field was by Bleday. And there were runners on first and second, and Bleday hit a drive which for a minute I thought was gone. But it certainly was a double off the wall. Except for reasons I don't understand, Butler didn't go like halfway between second and third. He tagged up. Rooker didn't see what was happening. And somehow there were 3 runners in between second and third, and Rooker got tagged out. And at that moment, because, I thought Butler could have walked home. And I can't get too mad at Butler because Butler's been unbelievable. And I wasn't sure. It was Butler's mistake, but Rooker should have also seen what was happening there. But at that moment, when they couldn't score from second off a ball off the wall, and the Tigers came right back and scored the next inning, I have to make a confession. Psychologically, I waved my hands and said, this game's over. They're not going to win. If they can't score a run on a ball off the wall, then they're not going to win. Now, I'll also tell you another thing. In California, it's really hot. There's been a hot period, and I had to take my dog for a walk. And I figured it was getting a little cooler, so I put the leash on her, and I started taking a walk, and I was listening to the game on the radio. And psychologically, I thought it was over. Especially, the Tigers, Riley Green, who had a wonderful game, made it 1-0. But then, this is one of the things about this game, which is it's going to rank high up there of my favorite games of the year, because weird things happened. Like the triple that Jacob Wilson hit was basically a flare that hit the right spot of the line, and that wound up scoring Geloff. And then the 6th inning, it was Daz Cameron with 2 outs and 2 strikes, got a single, and suddenly the A's were up 2-0, and Skubal was gone. I thought, oh, wow, this is cool. This is cool. And then Otanez threw 2 wild pitches, which wasn't cool. And so it was a 2-2 game. And and for those who were watching the game, it was 2-2 going into the 9th. And Miller pitched a great 9th inning, and the home play. The home plate umpire, Gabe Morales, his strike zone was all over the map in the 9th inning, and the A's couldn't score. Then 2 outs, Colt Keith gets an RBI single, and I'm thinking, Mason, stupid Manfred man, stupid. Well, what a stupid way to lose this game. Then Brent Rooker doubled and tied the game. And then Parker Meadows, who earlier this week hit a grand slam with 2 outs in the 9th inning and his team down 3-0. So he is a little bit of having a nice fun week here. And he wound up getting a double that gave the Tigers a 2-run lead with 2 outs. And it was one of those moments I could hear Keith Law and a lot of other some of the sabermetricians of the world smack their forehead because they had, with 2 outs, intentionally walked a batter because they were trying to set up a force at every base, or at least a force at second and first. And that runner came around to score. I thought, man, that second run. And then this is one of the glorious things about baseball. Seth Brown did not even start the game. He didn't start the game. The game started with Seth Brown on the bench. And it was the, the 11th inning. He had still not played. And in many ways, this became the Seth Brown game because he came off the bench in the 11th inning and homered to tie the game. All right. Riley Green says, hold my beer. And he wound up getting a single. And then in the bottom of the 12th with Shelby Miller, who's still cashing a check, loaded the bases, and Brent Rooker hit a deep fly ball that tied the game. And then we go to the 13th inning, and Seth Brown got the base. And they at this point, both teams were just using everybody. I was surprised Stomper didn't pitch. And Miller threw 2 innings out of the bullpen. Holman threw 2 innings out of the bullpen. Harris threw multiple innings out of the bullpen. They didn't use Stripling, but they're not going to be able to use Miller. He threw 2 innings and everything. Alexander was a little bit messy. But there it was. The game took 3 hours and 45 minutes to play, which used to be 9 innings of a Red Sox-Yankee game, in front of nearly 15,000 people, which is, again, I mean, not a great crowd, but a decent-sized crowd, and the crowd that stuck around for this memorable marathon got themselves a hell of a ball game. But I loved it. I love this game because both teams just counterpunched. And if you have to have the Manfred man, and I hate the Manfred man, but if you have to have the Manfred man, have 2 teams that just keep driving that Manfred man in. And if you look at the line score, both teams scored a run in the 10th, both scored 2 runs in the 11th, both scored a run in the 12th, and by holding them in the 13th, the A's wound up winning it. And with that, the toughest game, the absolute toughest game of this schedule was Skubal, who is going to be a top 3 Cy Young contender. You're probably, who's probably going to win the Cy Young this year? I mean, probably Lugo from the Royals. It's probably going to be in the conversation, right? And Framber Valdez will probably get some votes, but Skubal definitely will as well. And to win that game when they were facing defeat so many times, that's a great feeling. Well, they got Basso is pitching tomorrow against Herter. Now, that's kind of a coin toss, especially since both bullpens are slightly gassed right now. So you want to do this, folks. You want to have this team climb to 73 wins so they can avoid 90 losses. Well, guess what? They're at 62. If they just split the next 2 games, they will officially avoid 100 losses this year, which is a big improvement. But now let's come on. We got to see win these series. And Today, they showed a lot of guts. Today, they showed a lot of heart. And a lot of people put in some big at-bats and big moments that wiped away the base running blunder that took place earlier. So, here we go. Here we go. And Brett Rooker and company pull out one of these next two games. You're not going to be able to have Miller, but they're going to be gassed as well. So, we're going to see what happens, but you're probably not going to top the Friday marathon. Let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk about FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. We'll have something a little different for you right now. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. Say that 3 times fast. All you'll need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks so much for making Locked On A's your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy more of me, your pal Sully on the Locked On MLB podcast. I'm there to provide the national perspective with my point of view and some of my humor and some of my silliness as I get you ready for the Major League Baseball playoffs and the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with me. I've got it covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. All right, well, we couldn't expect back-to-back great games, could we? Well, we could have. I mean, the thing was the A's got a really nice performance from Brady Basso in his first career start. And he had appeared in a couple of games as a reliever earlier, but you could not ask for a better start from him on Saturday. He gave the A's 6 innings, 3 hits. He struck out 6. He only walked 1. And, you're handing the ball to a guy making his first major league start after a marathon game that they had on Friday, where the bullpen was probably a little gassed. And he gave you 6 solid innings. And you couldn't ask for more than that from him. The thing that really impressed me was that he only allowed 1 walk and that he got through, they let him work through those innings. I was really afraid Kotsay was going to pull him after 5. I said, no, have him pitch to 6. I know that it would probably be a bit much to have him throw the 7th. It would be a bit of courting disaster. But they did it, and the disaster came in the 7th inning when, let's face it, McFarland didn't have it. He and Otanez and allowed the inherited runners score. They got the Tigers tied the game on an infield play, and then they wound up taking the lead with the sacrifice fly by Parker Meadows, which we're lucky it was more than it wasn't more than a sac fly. But that was the only. I can't really get too much on the pitching staff. I really can't, because the Tigers didn't get a big, huge rally. They dinked home a pair of runs in the 7th. My issue is a little bit with the A's bats. They got 6 hits and they walked once. And for reasons I do not understand, the Tigers did a whole opener thing where they started one guy, then they brought in the other. They played that shenanigans the day after a marathon game. Hunter wound up pitching into the 6th, and Hunter pitched well for the Tigers. But what if he didn't? What if he got smacked around in the 2nd or 3rd inning? They would have to burn 4 pitchers before they get to the 5th. The A's they couldn't get anything big going. They left 6 runners on base. Rooker didn't have I can't get on Rooker and Butler. Butler got a double, so he kept his, he's still on fire. But, they couldn't get that big rally. They couldn't get that big hit when they needed it, save for the McCann RBI single in the 5th. And my issue is with the bats. I mean, they were the Tigers weren't throwing Glavine, Maddox, and Smoltz out there. Hannafy, Hunter, Vanasco. I mean, Vanasco has an ERA that starts with a 6. Gunther's not a bad pitcher. Foley's not a bad pitcher, but I mean, you got to be able to push one more run across. Because if they pushed a run across in the 8th or the 9th inning and sent it into extras, the Tigers would be going to the bottom of the barrel again. That's why it was so critical. Just get a run any way you can, but they didn't, and it's frustrating because you want to, especially after the high of the victory on Friday night, to then just see the bats be as dead as they were and waste a really good pitching performance. And Basso had a great pitching performance, and Beto pitched 2 shutout innings. So the law firm of Basso and Beto gave the A's 8 shutout innings, and the one rally that they got was 2 unearned runs. So they got the pitching they needed. Holding the Tigers to 2 unearned runs after a marathon, you got to pick it up. They're not throwing an ace at you. They're not throwing Scooble at you. You got to be able to score 3 runs off of that pitching staff. But they didn't, and now we're going to see a rubber game be played. And you already know what's happened. If they win this series, I'll be completely content. If they don't, then this Saturday game will bug me, because this was a winnable game, and they could have had the Tigers on the ropes and be thinking sweep. But it's part of the game. Let's see what happens on Sunday. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships. This also keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only and exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Thanks so much for making Locked On A's your first listen. For your second listen, have it be more of your pal Sully. I'm at Locked On MLB, where I talk about the national game. All the things happening as we go down the stretch. Mets, Braves battling out. Are the Twins slumping? Will that allow the Mariners to come back in? I don't know. Neither do you, but listen on. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Well, that was the finale, and usually part 3s don't go so well. A lot of part 3s are not as good as the others, and boy, oh boy, this was the Dark Knight Rises of A's Tigers games. It was, when Sweeney of Detroit had a day. He went 4 for 4. All right. He got 4 hits. He got half the number of hits the A's got. Sweeney it got the 3 singles, the home run. He drove in 2. He scored 2. He had a phenomenal day. There was a couple of times where, Wilson got on with a 3-1 single in the 7th inning with Butler and Rooker coming up. And I thought, the A's were down 3-1 at that point. I thought, here we go. And then in came a reliever. I don't remember who the hell it was. Maeda? I don't remember who the hell it was. It was somebody. It was because they do the opener weird thing in Detroit left and right. And one freaking pitch, as all these scenarios happen in mind. You got your number 9 hitters coming up. Butler and Rooker can hit at will. Remember a couple of days ago where the A's got 3 or 4 hits from Butler, 3 or 4 hits from Rooker, and nobody else got a hit? Well, now you got the number 9 hitter get a hit. Said, okay, here we go. Let's go. First pitch, double play. And then the score was still 3-1 going into the 8th, and Ross Stripling came in and immediately gave me the rest of the day off. Because Stripling was dreadful. He had 6 hits, all 6 runners came around to score. Holman let one of them in, was charged to Strickland. And what was a pretty tight 3-1 game turned into a 9-1 butt whipping. And I can't lie to you. With a series that started off so wonderfully with that wild back and forth game. And then yesterday's game was, it wasn't, obviously I wasn't happy about things, but it was at least you felt like, okay, they played well. There's just one inning. And then to just have it be this being just a dud. It's a bit of a disappointment, a bit of a letdown. But there you go. There you go. The Beto is going to pitch in game 1 against the Astros starting on Tuesday. They have Monday off. So, you got Mason Miller available. Everyone's available to go an inning or so. The Astros, who just had their lunch handed to them by Arizona today, are they're going to win the division. They're going to win the division because Seattle absolutely took the gas pipe and allowed them to do it. And they're probably not going to catch Cleveland or New York. They're 3.5 games behind Cleveland. They're 4 games behind New York. And there's only a couple of weeks left. So the Astros are basically playing for getting their rotation lined up and everything. And the ironic thing for A's fans is the A's are probably not going to face the one pitcher you'd want to face right now, which is ironically Verlander, the A's nemesis from the 2012 and 2013 postseason. Verlander, look at Hall of Famer, great pitcher, one of the great aces of this generation, but he's slipping. So we're going to see. We're going to see what happens. A's and the Astros are starting up their series, and the A's still need to win one more game to completely wipe away any hope of 100 losses. There's 18 more games to go, and they need to win 11 out of 18 to avoid 90 losses. So you lose games like this, like they did to the Tigers. They've dropped 6 out of their last 10 games, so that's a bit of a disappointment. So let's get back on track. Day off, dust yourself off, and let's see them take the Astros. So follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Looking back at a series with Detroit that started with a flourish and ended with a thud, kind of like The Godfather. This has been Locked On A's. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.